Hello, buddy. Welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be talking about the 8.11 AD Carry Tier List. So, the official patch notes have not come out yet. This is Tuesday. Last time I looked. Let me look one last time and see if they have come out. No, they have not come out yet. This article was claiming that they came out, but then I think they redacted. Yeah, someone pulled the article because it said, we got it straight from the patch notes. No, you didn't, because they're not released. So it's not out yet. So I think what happened is with the Memorial Day holiday, they're going to release the patch notes tomorrow on Wednesday, and then the patch will go into effect Thursday. That's what they did last time there was a holiday. I forgot the reason behind that, but anyways. However, I do have a lot of these videos I want to do. I do want to do a new support tier list video as well, and then of course I want to have a bunch of Pike coverage and all that kind of stuff. So I just want to get ahead of it a little bit and just talk about the AD carry tier list. So some of these numbers that we talk about might be a little different because I'm going to be drawing from the PBE, but it should be very, very similar. Even if the numbers on these items are just slightly different, then it should be okay. I'll write something in the commentary section if the numbers are dramatically different, especially if like Essence Reaver is very different than the way that it looks right now. Then I will make a comment. So look in the comments section to see if there's anything that's changed. But I suspect it'll probably be about this. So whenever I talk about the tier list, it's important to keep in mind that I'm talking to a larger audience here. So I'm not talking specifically to you as an individual person watching this, right? I'm talking to the thousands of people that are going to be watching this video. So there could be any number of, different permutations that people are comfortable with. So for example, I may not have Vayne very high on this list, but if you're a really good Vayne player with like 1,000 games on Vayne and 60%, then you should go ahead and play Vayne, right? So this is just intended for a broader audience, just to give people an idea of, how to start thinking about these champions in this new meta, because I think a lot's going to shift in patch 8.11, both in the AD carry role and in some other roles as well. And I'll talk about all of the other roles in my patch notes, and then if I do tier lists for other roles other than support, then I'll have that up as well. I'll try to do tier lists for each role on this patch because so much is changing. Okay, so it's targeted towards a broader audience. This is intended for Plat minus. This is not for professional players. It's not for challenger level players. This is just for people with just an average level of experience on these champions at Platinum and lower. And then I also take into account the meta and just sort of the reliability of the champion as well when I'm ranking these. So for example, Ezreal is probably the most conspicuous example, who's going to be tier 2 on my list, but if you're looking at a professional list or a challenger list or like an Ezreal one-trick list, then Ezreal would be much higher, right? He's just very, very difficult for a lot of people to play correctly. So that does calculate into some of my formulations of this tier list. Okay, and so for each pick, there's going to be a link here. So for Xayah, that we're going to start with, I have linked the Wikia, which we'll click on, and that'll tell you all about Xayah's abilities, her scaling. So it's just a fantastic website that I use all the time for the analyses on the channel. Then I'll also have a rating system, and then runes and recommended items. Now with this rating system, in terms of lane pressure, I'm talking about your ability to exert your will on the lane during the laning phase. That could be pushing in minion waves, it could be poke. Just how likely are you to dominate the lane before lanes break, and particularly before level 6. So how good are you in the early game laning is pretty much what this is going to be. Kill threat is how likely are you to get a kill during the laning phase. And, it could be later on as well, but I'm probably just thinking about in the laning phase primarily. So how likely are you to kill people in the laning phase? That's different than pressure. Pressure does include kill threat, but it could also just be the ability to push in waves or just to poke. Okay, so how likely is this champion to get a kill during the laning phase? Safety, so how safe is this champion both in the laning phase and then later into the game as well? So do they have escapes? Do they have dashes? Do they have some other kind of defensive capabilities? How vulnerable are they to getting picked off? And that's really important to think about in this meta because there's a lot of people camping bottom and there are a lot of assassins running around. So scaling is how well does this champion transition into later into the game. So this could be in terms of raw damage, but this could also be in terms of utility that they might offer. So do they do something special, such as have like really good area of effect team fighting abilities, have really good engage or CC? What do they do that helps make them powerful as the game progresses? And then finally, reliability. So this is probably the most sort of blended stat that I have on the list, right? So reliability is how difficult is the champion to play, how difficult are they to execute, but then also how likely are they going to be able to get shut down by the enemy, right? So how often is this champion going to be able to do their thing in a game, right? So how often are they going to be able to work at an optimal level, either because of their mechanics or because of the enemy's ability to counter them, right? So it's a combination of those two. So how reliable are they in a game? How often are you going to see the best of what that champion has to offer? Okay, so let's go ahead and look at Xayah, who's number 1 on the list here. Got her pulled up. So Kai'Sa's already really strong. If we look at just how she is on patch 8.10, and I'll be looking at Analytics too, just to kind of compare a few different stats. So I don't look at just like win percentages, but it is something to definitely keep in mind, is how much does that champion actually win? How often are they picked? How often are they banned? So it is important to keep that in mind when you're looking at different things. So she's already near the top, and she doesn't use Infinity Edge. So I guess just as a backdrop, what do I think about this overall? I'm going to talk about this more in the patch itself. But what I think this is going to do to AD carries, all of these changes, is anyone that has to have critical strike is going to be much, much worse. Borderline unviable, as you can see in this tier list here. Like someone like Jinx and Misfortune. Well, Misfortune doesn't really use that much crit, but like Jinx and Caitlyn specifically. And then Tristana to a lesser extent, because people aren't playing her lately. Those champions really have to have crit to function. They don't have another mode. Like they can't use Blade of the Ruined King. They're not going to be able to use the new Essence Reaver that well. They don't use lethality. They don't use on-hit builds with like Gensus and Nashers, so they really don't have very versatile builds. And those champions are going to get absolutely demolished on this patch, right? Because they are increasing the cost of all of the crit items by 300, which is just an astronomical amount. That's so much. If you remember last year, what really was kind of the nail in the coffin for Blade of the Ruined King was they increased the price by like 200, and then they decreased the price of Infinity Edge by like 300. And that's what completely shifted the meta from being this Hurricane, Blade of the Ruined King meta into the crit meta. Now, there were some other things too, right? Like they nerfed Hurricane's interaction with Caitlyn. They nerfed Hurricane like 5 different times last spring. So that was a thing. And then they also introduced Rapid Fire Cannon. They introduced the stat where things energize 25% faster. All right, so there were a couple of things, but cost matters a lot. It matters a whole lot. And they are just completely gutting Critical Strike. If you look, they're taking off 5% here, increasing the price by 100 on Zeal. That's massive. Brawler's Gloves. I don't know if it has them on here somewhere, but they're going from 400 gold to 600, I believe. Where are those Brawler Gloves? May have skipped over them. Okay, but anyways, that's a component of... I don't know why they don't have them all, like, linked together here. But that's a component of the... of all of the crit items. So even at the most basic fundamental level, these items are costing a heck of a lot more gold, right? So that's increasing the price of Critical Strike in general as a stat, because Brawler Gloves is the most fundamental Critical Strike sort of component. It's increasing the price by 50%, which is huge. And you can see they're increasing the price on all of these by 300. So it's increased at the most basic level, Brawler's Gloves. It's increased at the intermediate level with Zeal, and it's increased at the top level with Ruden's Hurricane. So you're just kind of getting screwed over at every single step of the process if you're a Critical Strike champion. And because Critical Strike, you need to collect multiples of these items. You have to have Static Shiv and Rapid Fire Cannon and Infinity Edge. It's just costing you way, way too much gold if you want to do that now. And Infinity Edge has just been completely gutted. Right, so now it's 3,700 gold, which is just huge. That's like a 300 gold increase there. They did increase the attack damage, which is nice. But now it no longer gives you that 50% extra crit damage. Right, so now it's giving you 15% of your Critical Strike damage is converted to true damage, which is okay against tanks, but like that's a lot less damage against squishy targets. A lot less damage. It used to be 20% on the PvE, and they were testing it. Now they've made it only 15%. And you can't rush it anymore because it's just trash. because it doesn't give you any critical strike. So it's about the same amount of critical strike as it was if you have one critical strike item. You know, if you have Hurricane, it'll give you 60% crit, whereas in the past it gave you 50%. And then you'll have, once you get that third item, you'll have 100% crit. So if you assemble all three items, if you get Static Shiv, plus Rapid Fire Cannon, plus Infinity Edge, then it's going to give you 20% more crit than you had in the past, right? So that used to only give you 80% crit. Now it's going to give you 100%. So it's stronger at three items, at least in terms of the crit. But not having that 50% extra damage and replacing it with 15% true damage, it's not really that great. It's not really that great. If you want to think about it this way, if someone has 100 armor, that's going to block 50% of incoming damage. So if it was getting 50% extra critical strike damage, then you would only be getting 25% extra critical strike damage, right? And that's still more than 15% true damage after the damage block. So if we think of like 200 armor, that would be 100 divided by 300. Even if someone has 200 armor, like, that's a lot of armor. A lot of tanks don't even get, like, 200 armor that quickly in the game. It still would be more damage to have the original 50%. Because right now, you would still do 17 damage. So if someone was doing 50, extra damage versus this 15 true damage, then you would still be doing 17. So that means that for this to be more valuable as a stat, that you need to be hitting someone who has more than 200 armor, which is obviously ludicrous, especially in this meta where a lot of teams just aren't even running tanks. So that's the thing. So critical strike champs are going to be really bad here. The easiest thing to think about then are going to be the on-hit champions that didn't get critical strike in the first place are all going to be a little bit better. So anyone who wanted to rush Gensu's, plus like Nashor's Tooth or Gensu's plus, just some other on-hit item, is going to be a little bit stronger. So that's primarily Xayah and Varus. But then Ezreal also gets a little bit stronger here because he, just doesn't use critical strike either. Things like Kog'Maw get a little bit stronger. So all those champions just, at their core, get stronger because everyone else gets nerfed. Okay, so what are the other things that are going on here? Well, the most important thing to note is this item, Essence Reaver. Now, this potentially is a very powerful item, but it's very, very situational. So if you look at the raw stats, 70 attack damage is worth 35 each. Gives you 2450, and then, so we've got 2450. If you activate it and use this, for those 8 seconds, that 30% attack speed's worth 25. That right there pays for itself. Okay, so if this is active in a fight, it lasts for 8 seconds, which is quite a while. If you use your ultimate, trigger this Essence Flare, just the attack damage and the attack speed are automatically worth. Now, this is going to be these are the same stats as Storm Razor, which we'll look at up above in just a second. So it's going to be 70 and then 30, which is conspicuously exactly what the item costs, 3,200. So it's 100% effective. But you also get 20% cooldown reduction, which is worth 26 each. So you're getting 520 value there. And then mana is worth 1.4 each. So now you're getting 4140 gold worth of value on this thing, divided by 3,200. So you're getting about 129% efficiency. That doesn't include refunding your mana, and that doesn't include this refunding of your cooldowns. Now keep in mind, this is each basic attack refunds 20%. It says of your remaining non-ultimate cooldowns. So that's important to keep in mind. So it's not 20% of the base. So if you have something that is, 15-second cooldown and you auto-attack twice in a second, let's say, then it would be, 20% off the first one, which would be, 3 seconds. and then 20% off your second one, which would be 2.4 seconds. So that's how it works. So it gets, the lower the cooldown, the less impact this is. But things that have kind of mid-range cooldowns, like 15 seconds, this is going to be pretty good. And I think this is after CDR is calculated. So, you know, you're going to get your 20% CDR on this. So anyways, it's a nice perk. It allows you to lower your cooldown on your abilities by a pretty good chunk every time you auto-attack. So it's nice. So this is, even if you don't include the cooldown refund or the extra missing mana, even if you take the normal just flat mana out of there, which is kind of a silly stat, I don't know, it's okay sometimes, but even if you think that's a garbage stat and you just take all of that out, it still is worth it. So this is going to be a very, very powerful item. But you have to have somebody that can use their ultimate and then fight as an AD carry. So that is not as many champions as you would think that want to proactively use their ult. So, for example, like Jhin, seems like he would love this item, but in reality, it's not that good on him because you don't just want to open a fight as Jhin with your ultimate, right? And then have to cancel your ultimate. You know, I guess you can open and then get a couple of shots off and then, like, you know, go in with this. But that's not really how Jhin wants to do that. Jhin wants to usually chase people or, like, use this at the very end of a fight to shoot people down who are trying to run away after the fight's already won, right? Or he might occasionally use this to start a fight at max range. Either way, he's not going to be using it close enough to where he can auto, because if he was, he would just auto, right? And so it looks like it might be good on Jhin, but it's not really that good on Jhin, I don't think. So it needs to be someone who can proactively use their ult, or Misfortune. I've heard some other content creators talk about Misfortune. Once again, you know, you want to be channeling Misfortune's ult for 3 seconds. I guess you can activate this after you channel the ult, if you want to, but a lot of people are already going to run away from you while you're ulting, and you might have a hard time, you know, catching up with them. So it's just, like, very awkward on those types of champions. But this is very good on someone like Xayah, for example, because she wants to ult in. You know, she can ult in and start a fight like that if she wants to, and then boom, there it is, and you're in their face, you have your shield, you get this attack speed and all that stuff, and that's all good. So someone like Xayah, who has a low cooldown ultimate and who wants to proactively use that to get on top of people and engage, is really good, especially with Nimbus Cloak, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. But yeah, that makes Xayah very good with this item. Other champions that are pretty good with it, that are finding their way to the top of the list, is like Lucian, obviously comes to mind. Now, channeling his ultimate is a little awkward, but he at least gets to move forward, so you're staying close to people, so you're staying in range where you can use that auto attack after you finish your ultimate. So that's kind of different from Misfortune, who has to stay stationary when she's channeling her ult. And then Xayah is another one who could potentially be pretty good with it. Once again, you don't really want to be using Xayah's ult to start a fight, so that's a little awkward, but it could still be okay with her. And then Varus is the other person who really comes to mind, where you just ult somebody, and then obviously you're going to be attacking them after you ult. And Sivir's another one who's, like, decent at it, where, you know, you just ult, you run in, and you start attacking people. So those are probably kind of the best candidates for that. Now, keep in mind, it does have a cooldown on it. Oh, I forgot Corki. I guess we can put Corki down here. He's pretty much in the graveyard these days. It does have a internal cooldown of 30 seconds on it. So, you know, it would be cute to do this with Cog and have this up permanently. Just throw your ult on somebody or Corki, but it doesn't work that way. It's a 30-second cooldown. So it can work, but you're still going to be waiting 30 seconds on it. So this is an item that's really going to define how the meta is being played. Blade of the Ruined King's cost is lowered a little bit from 3,400 to 3,200, which is a pretty big deal. This item, the reason that we haven't seen it lately is because Critical Strike is just so good, because it scales so hard. But now that Critical Strike is garbage, you're going to see this as probably the premier attack speed item. And it's a very good item to rush on a lot of champions, or to get, you know, relatively early. Has this utility. It steals someone's movement speed for 3 seconds. That's a very long time to potentially run people down. And then it has attack damage, attack speed, lifesteal, and it steals current health. So even if they don't have a lot of tanks, this can still be a really powerful on-hit effect. So the fact that it's very good by itself as an attack speed item, that you don't need Critical Strike to make it useful, is going to increase the value on this by quite a bit. Bloodthirster's probably not going to matter on most champions. It's nice they lower the cost, but it's still not going to be that amazing. Guardian Angel is great. If you look at these stat changes, If this gets released as is, once again, then the Guardian part is basically free, the passive, which is insane. So if you look at like 45 attack damage, after they buff this, you go 45 times 35, you're getting 1575 attack damage, and then armor is 20 apiece, that's plus 800. Did I add that up wrong? Maybe I added that up wrong before. Okay, so not quite as free as I thought there. Let's say 45 times 35 plus 800. Okay, so cheaper than it was. You're only paying 400 now. Wow, was it really that bad before? Hold on, let me run the math from before. So 40 plus... Wow, okay, so you were paying 800 before, and now you're only paying like 400. So that does make it a lot better. So not quite as good as I thought it was initially, but still very, very good. So I would expect this to come back as like a decent third item option, especially now that you don't have to get all that critical strike to scale together. You could see this as a decent option as a third or a fourth item potentially. And then you're going to see the armor pin perhaps come back as an option for third or fourth item too, the way they changed that towards 35% flat penetration, which is really, really nice. Even against squishy targets, that's pretty good. Okay, so where does Xayah fall into this mix? Why is she so strong? Alright, so she's pretty bad in the laning phase. She's not too terribly safe. She's okay, but her scaling is through the roof. She does just an absolute ton of damage, and a lot of that is because of her specific itemization that she can get. So she has a lot of AP ratios, which is pretty weird for an AD carry, but it just is what it is. So like her Q is 148% AP. This has 45%, and then of course her ultimate has 75%. So she does have really nice AP ratios, and she just really wants to get like just as much attack speed as she can get. So she's very good with Ginsu's Rage Blade. She's very good with like Ginsu's Nashers type of builds. Look at pro builds right now. And she's going to be very good with Essence Reaver. And the reason for that is, once again, she has a proactive ultimate. You can just use that liberally to start a fight, trigger it, and then you're going to lower the cooldown. She has a lot of really powerful mid-range cooldowns. So this supercharger in particular is 14-second base cooldown. So you're going to be lowering it with your Essence Reaver, and then every time you attack, you lower it even more by 0.5 seconds. So, Essence Reaver giving you all that extra attack speed, giving you that extra cooldown reduction, then being able to use supercharger even faster to get even more attack speed, to trigger even more cooldown reduction, creates this just really insane cycle of lots and lots of movement speed and lots of attack speed. So that's really good. And then while you're cranking out all of this, you're going to get your rockets back a lot faster as well. And then just having the base 20% cooldown on that and the AD is just a really, really powerful item for Xayah. So I think that she'll probably go Essence Reaver, Nashers, Ginsu's would be what I would put her on. She could go Ginsu's after Essence Reaver. Like, I'm not exactly sure of the entire order of this, but having a better attack speed item like Nashor's Tooth is really nice. Having that 50% attack speed as your secondary item to complement the Essence Reaver would be really nice. But it's totally possible that she could go Ginsu's before Nashor's. But I expect Essence Reaver either way to be the first item that she rushes. And in theory, she could even get something like a Blade Ruin King instead of Guardian Angel at the end if she really wanted to. But this should be more than enough to blow people away. Once you get this Essence Reaver, you're just going to start just slashing through people. And the Nashor's is going to give you a lot more burst. So it might be Ginsu's first. I'm not really sure. Maybe Ginsu's not first, but like after Essence and then Nashor's. No. I think, so now I remember why I had this. I think the reason that I had Nashor's here first is that's going to give you 40% total CDR. And that's going to allow your ultimate to be up more so that you can use Essence Reaver even more in fights. And so I think just having the synergy between the 40% CDR and just triggering that Essence Reaver a lot is really powerful. I think that a lot of people are going to come off of Fleet Footwork too. We'll see. They did nerf it. I don't remember where the thing is in here, but they nerfed it by quite a bit. And one of the things that made Fleet Footwork really good in the first place was that you could get critical strike items and get even bigger heals off of Fleet. And they're kind of taking that out of the equation. So I think we're going to see that vanish, although people might keep it just for the sustain, even though it's certainly a lot weaker than it was. Here you go. So it does have a bigger AP ratio, which would be nice for Xayah. And the movement speed has changed from... You get less movement speed, and then you only get 20% effectiveness instead of 30%. And then it doesn't have that critical strike modifier on it. So I don't know. There's a chance that people could still keep it. If they don't keep it, then I think that you could see press the attack, which would be really nice with all of this extra attack speed. And remember that press the attack makes them vulnerable not only for you, but for all of your allies as well. So it makes it a lot easier to focus down specific targets, and it increases your ability damage to it too, your AP damage as well. So it's not just your AD like Conquer, it's also your abilities, your AP abilities, and all of your allies as well. So press the attack is really, really nice. So I think we might see some more the return of press the attack here, but we'll see. Then Triumph, Coup de Grace. Now Nimbus Cloak is another one that she's going to be awesome with. So she's got a lot of good new stuff on this patch. So this is what they're replacing Ultimate Hat with. It's basically shortly after casting your ultimate, gain a decaying movement speed increase that lasts for 2.5 seconds. It lets you pass through units, and you get 100 movement speed. 100. And if you take Celerity with this, then that's going to give you 8 extra AD as well, which is pretty nice. 60-second cooldown, and it's reduced by cooldown reduction, so it's always going to be up when your ult is up. So these two combined with Nimbus Cloak and Essence Reaver really wants you to have that proactive ultimate, especially on someone like Xayah where you can run people down. So I think that's going to be pretty bonkers. I think she's almost certainly going to be the best AD carry on this patch. It's going to be pretty disgusting with Essence Reaver. So yeah, she's at the top of my list. Someone else who is not that great right now, but I expect to be a rising star with this, is Lucian. I don't think it's going to take a lot of people very long to figure out that Lucian's really good with this. Particularly with Essence Reaver. For the same reason that Xayah's good with it. He has some really good mid-range abilities, and he auto-attacks. Now, the thing about Lucian as well is that his double shot, each one of those shots will lower the Essence Reaver cooldown. So every time he does that double shot, it'll lower all of your cooldowns by 40% of their current amount. 40%. So that means he's going to be zipping around, just spamming Piercing Light and Relentless Pursuit, and he's just going to be all over the place. So, you know, Essence Reaver is going to be just a match made in heaven for this guy. It's going to be phenomenal. So he's going to be really, really strong. He's already pretty strong. It's just he's kind of... He gets suppressed in lanes at higher elos, primarily by like Caitlyn and longer ranged attack champions, because he has a very short auto attack range. He only has 500 auto range, I think. It's 500 or 525. 500. Yeah, so that makes him line up very poorly against things like Jinx, against things like Caitlyn, who are all very, very strong on 8.10. But this is going to help him out a lot because those champions are in trouble. And, you know, some of these champions, particularly like Xayah, Xayah, Twitch, these champions aren't really that much of a threat early on in the laning phase. Obviously, Draven is, but this might give him a little bit of an easier laning phase. And then once he gets that Essence Reaver, it's going to be off to the races. So I think he's going to go something like Essence Reaver, Blade of the Ruined King, Black Cleaver. And he's very, very good with Blade of the Ruined King as well, which just got its price reduced because each one of those shots applies the Blade of the Ruined King, so he double applies that. And then Essence Reaver is going to let him spam that quite a bit. And then Black Cleaver is going to put him at 40% CDR, and then he's going to be lowering the armor of everybody that he uses this on. And then Nimbus Cloak, whenever he casts his ult, he's going to be able to run people down and get right in their face, pretty much, and make sure that he's able to channel that full ult on him, which is going to be disgusting. And then he's going to be ready to go as soon as that finishes to pop right in and do that Essence Reaver thing. So I think that's that's going to be pretty gross. Yeah, so he only has 110 second cooldown on his ult, which is the same as Xayah. So, yeah, I think he's going to be very strong. He does have an AP ratio on his E, which is kind of weird, but I don't think you want to go any AP items on him. But yeah, I expect Lucian to be very, very strong on this patch, so definitely watch out for that. And he's a champion that does have a lot of kill threat in the lane as well. People forget he does a lot of damage. Now, you have to be pretty good with him. You know, if you don't get off your double shots and chain together your stuff properly, then he's going to be pretty bad. But if you chain it properly, then he can be really, really strong. He's obviously a very good press the attack user as well, because each one of those shots counts as one tick towards press the attack. So he gets a lot of benefits off of those double shots, right? He gets to abuse that on Essence Reaver. He gets to abuse that on press the attack. He abused it on Black Cleaver, Blade the Ruined King. Just that double shot's really, really strong. And it's very good with some of the best support items out there. When you think of Zeke's, each one of those shots is going to be able to trigger Zeke's 25% extra on-hit damage, and it's going to trigger Ardent Sensor, each one of those on-hit procs. So you stick him with a Rakan who goes Zeke's plus Ardent Sensor, and it's just going to be insane. He's also very good with Nami, who's another popular support right now, because each one of those double shots triggers one of Nami's E's. So he can, you know, cycle through her E's even faster than a lot of other AD carries. So he just has great synergy with the new items that are coming out. Great synergy with some of the new runes like Nimbus Cloak, and great synergy with two of the best supports right now, which, you know, is Nami and Rakan. So very, very good. He might be number one, but I'm going to give Xayah the benefit of the doubt here, because she has been kind of the reigning queen for a few patches here, and she's a lot easier to play than Lucian, but I think he's still going to be quite strong. Okay, next up we have Xayah. So I do think that Xayah will get a bit stronger here. Now, historically, she has wanted to have critical strike because her E scales off a crit. But she would also really like something like Essence Reaver as well. Quite a bit, right? Because she has very powerful abilities. You think of her Deadly Plumage, once again, kind of a mid-range ability that's super strong. You know, if she has this up multiple times in a fight, it's a lot. It's basically 20% extra damage for her, and 50% attack speed, and basically gives her 30% movement speed for 4 seconds. So if you're just constantly running around, hitting people, triggering that Essence Reaver, then this is going to effectively be on something like a 5 or 6 second cooldown, which is nuts. And then, of course, Blade Caller. If you get off 2 Blade Callers in a fight, you know, 1 is usually enough to kill everybody, but 2 is definitely going to kill everybody. So that each time you cast your abilities, you also get to put more feathers on the ground. So, you know, just your ability when Essence Reaver is up to spam Deadly Plumage, Double Daggers, Blade Caller is going to be great. Now, the problem, though, this is why she's not as good with it as Lucian and Xayah, are that you really want to save your Featherstorm as, like, because that's your major defense. You want to use that as a defensive cooldown. So you don't just want to run into a fight and just Featherstorm, you know, right off the bat just to trigger Essence Reaver. So she's not going to be as good with it as, you know, other champions potentially out there. She's going to have to, you know, wait for a little bit probably before she can trigger it, and then she'll have to use it to clean up the fight. So not quite as good, but nevertheless going to be very strong. Now the other question is, well, what do you get with her after that? And it's difficult to say for sure. I think that she'll probably go back to press the attack. She could still go Fleet Footwork once again. Nimbus Cloak, I went ahead and put in there. It does help you kite, so after you use your ult, usually it's when someone's diving you anyway, so having that extra 100% move speed, or that extra 100 flat move speed to reposition will be pretty handy. But I think it'll probably be Essence Reaver and then Blade the Ruined King. Blade the Ruined King's not amazing on her, and the reason is, and I was, you know, reading this closely to see, according to the Wikia, your clean cuts do not trigger Blade the Ruined King. So if you hit 3 people with this, so if you, like, you know, cast this, you hit 3 people in a team fight, only the first person is going to be affected by the Blade the Ruined King proc. So that is kind of unfortunate. And this is why historically this has been a really bad item, because a lot of people don't understand that about Xayah. Now this is different from Twitch, because Twitch specifically says all of the extra shots that hit people can critically strike, and they apply on hit damage. It says that specifically right on Twitch's tooltip, which we'll look at here in a second. But with Xayah, that doesn't count. However, it does give her some healing, which is nice. It does give her attack speed that's, you know, affordable. It does give her that extra little bit of on-hit damage. So it's just a good, well-rounded item. If you're not going to get critical strike, then Blade the Ruined King is one of the best, you know, attack speed items, right? And then Black Cleaver is kind of an interesting one. We're kind of taking a page out of Lucian's book here. Because if you think about it now, your feathers do apply Black Cleaver stacks. So they do not, because they're all physical damage. So they do not apply on hit, but Black Cleaver is not on hit. It's any physical damage applies this. So if you hit everybody with a bunch of clean cuts, and then your Feather Storm, and then recall all of that back, then their armor is going to be shredded and they're going to take a lot of extra damage. So I think that Cleaver might be okay on her. If that's bad, then she could go for something like a Death's Dance or something like that last, and go for a double lifesteal build if she wants to go for kind of the longer game. But I think it'll probably be something like this. Yeah, I mean, this would be my guess. So I think this will probably be the way that she'll go. Like, you could go something like Hurricane as well. So you could go like Essence Reaver, Blade the Ruined King, Hurricane. Might be a thing. So just getting Hurricane just for those bolts so that you can apply the extra Blade the Ruined King. Now, Essence Reaver, the bolts off of Hurricane do not, each of those bolts does not trigger Essence Reaver. So you're not going to get 60% cooldown on your ability for the bolts. I'm pretty sure. That would be very overpowered. Because it's on attack, not on hit. I'm pretty sure. Your basic attacks, let's say, basic attacks, yeah. So it's on attack, not on hit. So if you have Gensus, the Gensus won't apply extra Essence Reaver cooldown procs. Hurricane won't apply it. It's only on your auto attacks. Lucian does apply it because that does each one of those shots counts as a basic attack. I'm pretty sure. Ezreal's Q would apply. If for some reason you want to get this item on Ezreal, but because those apply like on attack, I think, but not on hit. Okay, so that's what I think we'll see, and I think she's pretty good in the meta right now. She's pretty well positioned. She's very good against divers. She has good defense against assassins with her ultimate. You know, she can go Ninja Tabi if she has to, and then you know, the Black Cleaver will help her be a little bit tankier as well. So she's okay. She doesn't abuse Essence Reaver as well as some others, but I still think she'll continue to be a very strong pick. Okay, Draven is another one that I have up here. Now, Draven is the hardest AD carry to play, but he's going to be very, very good, I think. And one of the main reasons for this is his first couple of items, a lot of times historically, don't have to be critical strike items. So he has gotten Bloodthirster in the past. He's gotten Death's Dance in the past. And the reason that Lifesteal is so strong on Draven is because his Q applies Lifesteal, and it has a lot of extra bonus AD. So his Q hits like a truck early on. Hits really, really hard. And all of that, he gets to Lifesteal back. So he basically starts off doing just like a massive amount of damage. And so just having that Lifesteal helps him stay up in the fight even longer. So a lot of people with Draven, contemporary Draven builds, do get critical strike on him, but you don't have to, and that's been demonstrated in the past, I think. So I think that he could go back to one of his old builds and just go something like Death's Dance into Bloodthirster, and then go Blade the Ruined King. So just go for like a triple lifesteal build. You'll hit really hard, you'll do a ton of damage, and you're going to heal for like half of your health every time you throw a Q. So I think this potentially could be pretty good. You know, there's a chance that he might want something like Stormrazor, just because his first hit is going to do that much more damage. It's going to be a guaranteed crit. So I haven't really put Stormrazor in a lot of builds yet, but it's basically 70-30 like we talked about before. That's 3,200 gold worth of value. So this right here already makes it worthwhile. And then the Storm's Edge, your next basic attack, critically strikes for, you know, this amount, 160%. But you're only going to trigger one of these in a lot of fights. You really want if you're going to go Stormraiser, you want to get that on a champion that is just going to show up and do a ton of burst right away. So Draven might fit that profile. I put it on Twitch. But Draven might be able to fit that profile. So I guess you could go something like Death's Dance, Stormraiser, Blade the Ruined King. Potentially. Could be a decent build. So, I mean, you could try Essence Reaver on him if you want to. It's okay. You'd have to throw your ult right at the start of a fight to trigger that. And he doesn't have a lot of like really powerful abilities that don't already reset. So his Q is going to be going all the time anyways. His Blood Rush, if you're catching axes, is going to be off cooldown all the time anyways. His Stand Aside is okay, but it's not like super game breaking. So he just doesn't have like as many high impact abilities as some of the other people who use Essence Reaver. So I'd probably just go for the triple lifesteal build and just try to crush people that way. Remember that you don't have to have a zillion damage these days either, because there are a lot of assassins running around that aren't going to be running any armor. And so just having a lot of damage and having this lifesteal is a great combination with Death's Dance, because Death's Dance is going to delay that damage that you're taking, and then you're going to be able to lifesteal up to counteract that. So it's going to make it very hard to burst through that Death's Dance and the Bloodthirster shield and the triple healing. So I think this would be pretty good. One of the obvious problems here is it doesn't have a lot of attack speed early on, so you really just want to go for that, just one or two really big hits to kill people. But I think that this could be pretty good. So I think Draven is very strong right now because, classically, he has had builds that didn't have to have crit that were very effective. So you could try to sneak in like a Ghost Blade or something in here if you want, but I think you're sacrificing a lot of damage for that move speed. Now you can put Nimbus Cloak on him as well, which I have here. So Conquer is very popular on Draven as well, which, makes you want to get a lot of AD. And that's another thing with Draven is AD is so valuable on him, rather, because you get up to 105% bonus AD, and then if you're going to run Conquer, which most Dravens are running, you want as much AD as you can possibly get, because Conquer converts, a certain amount of your AD over to damage. And also you want relatively short fights, because I think you only have 4 seconds with the true damage off of Conquer. So having those two really big ticket AD items, like Death's Dance Bloodthirster or Death's Dance Stormraiser, is going to give you that synergy with Conquer that you want. And Nimbus Cloak, so if you throw your ult right at the start, then you'll get that 100%, you get that 100 flat move speed for 2.5 seconds, which will definitely help you run people down. So that is something that could be super strong. And don't forget that 100 move speed will give you 8 extra AD as well. So I think this could be a pretty good little setup for Draven. And then finally, I have Twitch. I have Twitch a lot higher than a lot of other YouTubers will put him. And the reason is that invisibility is just so strong. It really is. People just do not play around it at all. And he can just completely take over a game by himself. He's one of the hardest, do-it-yourself carry champs in the game. Because nobody respects invisibility. And if he gets any kind of lead, he can just take over and crush. And sort of similar to Draven, Twitch historically has had builds that did not involve crit, and he was very successful with Blade the Ruined King. So I think we'll probably see a return to Blade the Ruined King Twitch, would be my guess, and I think he'll be fine with that. So Blade the Ruined King is particularly good on Twitch because this ultimate specifically says that each person hit gets an on-hit effect applied to them. So that means that everybody gets the Blade the Ruined King damage on him, and he gets all that lifesteal off of all of that. So that's a really, really strong interaction. And so we might see Blade the Ruined King, Hurricane combo again, and then I think Stormraiser could actually be really good on Twitch. So I don't have this on a lot of champs because you can't trigger it multiple times in a fight, but with Twitch you actually can in some situations, because after you get a kill, then you can go invisible again with your Q and just hang out for a couple of seconds and then pop right back up and get a crit on somebody again. So the fact that he can go out of sight and then show back up again and, optimize that Stormraiser could be pretty good. Also, the fact that he just shows up invisible and just starts fights and kills people really quickly when he sneaks up and assassinates makes it perfect for triggering the Stormraiser. So I think Stormraiser could be quite powerful on him. So Yeah, I mean, everybody knows Twitch. Everybody knows what he does. Now, I think that... Oh, not conquer. Press the attack. Must have had the Draven template over there. Yeah. Press the attack on Twitch is kind of the way to go. I think that going sudden impact... Ultimate Hunter could actually be really good on him. So sudden impact's going to give you that 10 lethality as soon as you pop up out of invisibility, which is very strong. And then now the new Ultimate Hunter that's going to show up in there is going to allow you to have more ultimates as well, because, you know, his ult is so strong, you want to have as much as possible. So I think Ultimate Hunter is probably a good way to go. You know, another build with this, or another way you could do this would be something like, you could go the standard Celerity Nimbus Cloak. He stands still a lot, though, you know, with Nimbus Cloak, so you're not going to need that 100 move speed probably with him. And he wants to stand and fire. He doesn't want to have to run backwards and kite people when he's ulting, because, you know, he only has 5 seconds to take advantage of that. Take advantage of his ult stats. So, or you could still just go the Celerity Gathering Storm if you want. I just think that, you know, maybe Sudden Impact plus Ultimate Hunter could be a bit better, but, you know, it could be correct just to go Celerity Gathering Storm here still. But I think these will probably be the new items that will be strong on him. Okay, and let's go through the tier 2 here just a little bit faster, and we'll see if we can close this out in about an hour. So I have Ezreal right here. You know, Ezreal is so difficult to judge because there's such a huge gap between like good Ezreals and bad Ezreals. So Ezreal definitely got stronger here because everyone else who used Critical Strike got weaker. So he's very weak in the lane. Hey, thanks for the sub. I appreciate it, Lord Sidious. Everybody else got a little bit weaker, so he's still going to go Klepto, Magical Footwear, Dematerializer, Cosmic, Celerity Gathering. So he's not using a lot of the new cool stuff. He does get a discount on Blatherin King, which is really nice. He doesn't get that all the time, but it's pretty nice. You can go Manamune, Trinity, Blatherin King, and then Seraphs. So while you're stacking your Seraphs, you get the Blatherin King. So it can be good. He has really nice poke damage. You can substitute Trinity for Iceborne Gauntlet if you want some more armor against, you know, dangerous AD assassins, and he can get the Ninja Tabby for that as well. So he can be really good, but you have to hit a lot of Qs and you have to dodge all the skill shots. So he's okay. He's really good in pro play. He's questionable in solo queue, but are you trying to hide?
Watch out for those stairs behind you.
I see. So yeah, he's alright. I mean, everyone's familiar with Ezreal. His playstyle's not changing that much. The double tier item does give him a little bit more play in the late game, which is good, but he's safe and sacrifices a lot of damage in the early and mid game for that safety. Okay, Varus is another one that I think is going to get a little bit more interesting. So Essence Reaver is pretty good on Varus. Because, you know, you cast your ult and then you just want to right away be attacking people. Now, he doesn't have that many high impact abilities that he lowers the cooldown on. So, like, he could shoot more arrows, which don't matter that much. Trying to exit that, but I guess I accidentally clicked on it. He can do, like, more hail of arrows, which is okay. You know, most of this power is off of its passive. So it's like, it's okay, but he doesn't have as many high impact abilities as someone like a Kaisa, a Lucian, or a Xayah with Essence Reaver. But he does have a very proactive ultimate. You throw it on him and then you start fighting. So just getting that extra, you know, attack speed could be pretty helpful. So I think that he could be a little bit stronger. I mean, the problem with Varus is he's very susceptible to assassins, especially if you miss your ultimate. But he could go for something like Essence Reaver, Nashor's, Ginsu's, Blatherin King, potentially. I think that's a pretty good build. Or he could just go for kind of the AP build that's been popular lately, and you could just stick with the, you know, Ginsu, Nashor, Deathcap, or whatever if you want to. But I think Essence Reaver is still good enough to get. You know, being able to throw one extra hail of arrows could be really important. And just getting that 70 AD with 30% attack speed. The mana refund, all that stuff is pretty good. So the new Essence Reaver, pretty good on him. Pretty good, but he's just kind of decidedly average in my book. Like, His damage is kind of average. It can be good if he's ahead. His safety's sort of average. He does have the slow from Hail of Arrows. He does have his ult. You know, he's just a pretty good sort of all-around utility AD carry. So he's alright. Sivir is somebody that I think is going to get a little bit stronger here, primarily because, you know, she can really use that Essence Reaver pretty well, right? So if we look at Sivir, she obviously has a proactive ult. So as soon as you cast this, you want to run in and fight. You're going to get this extra, you know, attack speed. You're going to help your allies run in and fight as well. You do have some pretty good abilities that you can lower the cooldown on. So getting off multiple boomerang blades, multiple ricochets in a fight can be really strong. And because you're already running at them, a lot of time as Sivir, then this Nimbus Cloak gets even better. Right, because then you're going even faster running towards them. So she is someone that I think might still run Fleet Footwork just because other stuff doesn't seem that appealing. Getting that extra mana on hit is really nice as well. Now, unfortunately, Ricochet does not trigger on hit abilities. So you're not going to get, like, you know, 10% of your mana back, missing mana every time you throw a Ricochet at a minion wave. But it is still pretty decent. So yeah, I'd expect to see her, but without Critical Strike, her bounces just aren't going to do nearly as much later in the game as they do with Crit. So, you know, she could go something like Essence Reaver, Death Stance, Blather, and King, but her damage is going to be a lot lower than a lot of other champions out there, just because her items don't line up as well with her kit as some of these items do with other champions, but she's okay. Now, a new one on this list that, you know, a lot of people might kind of question mark here, but I think that Quinn, I'm not saying that Quinn's really good, but I'm saying that all of these other AD carries are now so bad that Quinn might actually be kind of decent. So Quinn has quietly been getting, like, a really high win rate for the last few patches, which is kind of weird, because you don't see her very often at all. She's got, like, a 54% win rate, but you have to be careful because she only has a 0.3% play rate. But yeah, I mean, so the reason that I think Quinn might rise up a little bit is also because of Essence Reaver. Essence Reaver, Storm Razor, and Dustblade. She uses all of those pretty good. They're pretty well, rather. So if you look at Quinn and you think about sort of what Quinn does, now she's kind of a roaming sort of assassin type of AD carry. So she's not going to be amazing in team fights, although she'll be serviceable. So she has a very low cooldown ult. In fact, there's a no cooldown ult, so that makes it very good with Essence Reaver. So every 30 seconds, you can just Essence Reaver, you know, show up, blow people up. She does have some pretty high impact abilities that, you know, the cooldown gets lowered by Essence Reaver if you get into a fight with people. She does have a really high attack speed steroid. If you actually put some points in this, she can get up to, you know, 80% bonus attack speed. Now, it only lasts for 2 seconds, but every time you trigger a vulnerability on somebody, then it goes off for 2 seconds. So, like with Blinding Assault and Vault, both of those trigger vulnerability. Then as both of these go down in cooldown, because you've got your Essence Reaver going, then you're going to be able to trigger this much more often. So you're going to have a lot more uptime. So, for example, you know, you go in with behind enemy lines, you know, attack, then you get this proc for a couple of seconds, then you can Blinding Assault, proc it for another couple of seconds, Vault, proc it for another couple of seconds. So you can keep this up quite a bit in a fight if you chain together your abilities correctly. So she has pretty good attack speed and bonus movement speed. She can trigger Essence Reaver a lot. She can pick off a lot of AD attack damage type of champions because of the blind. Or the near sight, rather. So it's going to make it very hard for them to attack her for 1.5 seconds when she blinds them. So she is pretty good against other AD carries. She does have fairly short range, though, at 525. But she has pretty decent AD ratio on her Q, although her Vault and her Heightened Senses don't do that much. And her Sky Strike doesn't do a ton of damage either. It's only 40%. So, you know, She's okay. She's good at dueling other AD carries. She's kind of like a worse version of Twitch, where she can just run around and try to pick people off. I think Twitch is a lot better at that, but she is potentially really good at dueling other AD carries, or like pushing in a side lane and then rotating to your team later. So I think if you're going to play her, you need to just fully commit to doing that maximum damage, burst damage. So I would just run like Electrocute, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Relentless Hunter, and then just Coup de Grace and Alacrity. And then just go like Essence Reaver, Storm Razor, and Dustblade. So both of these will give you that extra burst damage, and this will allow you to get off 2 rotations of your abilities in a lot of fights. So I think that she could be sleeper, not like super strong. Once again, I think Twitch is better at doing what she's trying to do. But I think that she certainly gets a little bit more viable. She has some interesting build paths there. Like, you can still go Ghostblade on her if you want, but the thing is, you're already going to be running really fast with your ult. You could also get Nimbus Cloak on her as well, but usually it's going to wear off by the time you get on top of them, so it's okay. And then finally, I have Jhin here. He does get worse without Critical Strike. He can't really use Essence Reaver that well because it's just too awkward with his ultimate. But, you can still go kind of like the old Ghostblade, Dustblade, Stormblade type of build. So, Stormblade, you could even get that first if you wanted to, or after Ghostblade, because that will give you a guaranteed crit as soon as you hit people. And so that gives you that burst of speed to run down and kill somebody after that. And so I think that Dustblade, Stormblade is just a really nice, like, instant burst, especially if you do that with your 4th shot. I guess your 4th shot automatically crits. I don't know how that interacts with Stormblade. You probably can't crit twice on 1 shot, so I don't know. We'll see, though, so it could be okay. You just have to go back to the old Ghostblade, Dustblade type of build and just try to snowball early on. And since you're doing that, I would just probably go with Comet, Mana Flow, Celerity, Scorch, kind of the old school Jhin build. And then Triumph and Coup de Grace can both be pretty good. Okay, so just kind of honorable mentions here. I think that Kog'Maw is positioned to be very strong in this meta, potentially if he goes for like Gensu, Wit's End. He could even go Nimbus. Now that is interesting on Kog because this pretty much would give you like a ghost every 30 seconds. If you get into trouble and you just need to reposition, just cast your ult and then just boom, get 100 move speed for 2.5 seconds. So that's pretty good for getting him out of trouble. If he's trying to push up a bit further than he should be, or if someone's trying to dive him, then that could be a pretty decent option. So, Kog'Maw's alright. I don't think Essence Reaver would be that amazing on him. That would let you get off more W's in a fight. If it's going to let me, I guess it will not. Let me go back on this one. That would let you get off multiple W's in a fight, so maybe it's worth it. I mean, you can trigger it so easily just by pressing R on somebody. So lowering the cooldown on this so that you can keep this up pretty much permanently is nice, but usually the fight's over within 8 seconds if you're Kog'Maw and you're already fighting them. So, and he has like no AD ratios hardly at all in his kit. So yeah, I don't know if Essence Reaver would be amazing. I'd probably still just stick with the, like Gensu Wit's End build. So he's okay. He's just very, very vulnerable to Assassins, and I think Assassins are going to continue to be really strong. Ashe is another one who could potentially be pretty good with Essence Reaver, but once again, she doesn't have very many high-impact abilities. Like your Q focus takes a while to charge. It's not really dependent on any sort of particular cooldown. Your hawk shot doesn't gain any sort of real benefit. You can throw more of your W like your arrows, but it's already on a 5-second cooldown later on in the game. So Ashe is okay, but I'd rather just play Varus. I think he gets much more mileage out of Essence Reaver, plus he can go things like Gensu's Nashers and things like that. So I feel like Varus is a little bit stronger, but Ashe is okay. Jinx is just kind of going to be really rough. I mean, you could, in theory, try to go something like Blade of the Ruined King, Hurricane, or something with her, but It just feels really bad. Like, she really wants to have critical strike for her rockets. So, I think Jinx is going to be in trouble. Miss Fortune, I don't like Miss Fortune right now. Like, she can bully people out early, but you really want her in a team fight meta where a lot of people have CC and you can just hold people still while you channel your ult. It's just not the kind of meta we're in right now. She's very vulnerable to assassins. So, you know, she's okay. But I wouldn't play her. Caitlyn is definitely going to be one of the hardest hit champions. She has to have critical strike that interacts with her headshot mechanic and her traps. She has some of the lowest base attack speed in the game, so she is just terrible with items like Gensu's or Blather and King's. Just really, really bad on her. She doesn't really want Essence Reaver. I mean, her ult is not the kind of thing that you want to just start off a fight with, right? Kind of like Jhin. It's kind of used to snipe away people at the end of a fight. So she just doesn't have a lot of synergy at all with the itemization. She's definitely going to be in the penalty box, I think. Vayne is another champion. Like, you might be able to see some more Vayne, but she doesn't have a lot of really good synergy with Essence Reaver because her W is just passive. Her E condemn is like alright, I guess, and then her Q is already on such a low cooldown that it's Essence Reaver's not gonna matter. Like, she could in theory go something like Blather and King Rush plus Gensu's, but I'm pretty sure that Gensu's does not interact with her silver bolts. I'm not 100% about that. Because I think her bolts are on hit. Or to exit out of it. Or her silver bolts are on attack. Basic attacks. With an on-hit component. Yeah. So, yeah, Runin's does not apply Silver Bolts. So I don't think that Gensu's would trigger it twice either. And she doesn't have any AP ratios to benefit from the AP off of Runin's. So, you know, she really needs critical strike, I think. You know, maybe you could go for... I mean, I guess you could go for something like Stormrazor, like Blather and King plus Stormrazor. Just go for some really early, like, burst damage on people, but I don't know. She has such a hard time in lane. She's so terrible in the laning phase, and like she really, really wants the critical strike a lot of the time. Now, there have been times in the past where she was a Blather and King user, but I just feel like that's going to be really rough in this meta right now. Tristana's just kind of disappeared. I'm not sure why she's so bad right now, but it just feels like she is. That range nerf early on hurts. She really wants critical strike. You know, she just does not work very well with Blather and King or, you know, any of these other in vogue items. You know, in terms of, you don't really, like, if you use your ult on somebody, then they're not going to be in range, you know, for you to attack them and start doing your other abilities with Essence Reaver. So that's just kind of awkward with her ultimates. It's really a disengage tool. I mean, these abilities are nice, like, if she had an ultimate that was, like, compatible with them, but, yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense with what's going on right now. Kallista's an interesting case. You know, when you hear that Blather and King is getting buffed, you know, I automatically think, oh, Kallista, she's probably going to be a lot better here. But, you know, she really wants Hurricane as well, which is not that useful right now. Essence Reaver's not that useful on her. So she just doesn't have a lot of synergy with some of the best items out there. Just the last round of nerfs were just too brutal. I don't expect to see her. Now, Corki is somebody where Essence Reaver would be pretty good potentially. But he just has he has no attack speed steroids. He doesn't have anything that gives him bonus AD. He's just like all abilities, pretty much. So it's just kind of awkward with Corki. I feel like his scaling is pretty suspect compared to other AD carries. Now he can go, you know, things like Trinity. I mean, I guess you could go like Essence Reaver or like Trinity and then Essence Reaver. You'd have 40% CDR and you'd get lower cooldown on your stuff whenever you auto attack. But I don't know, it just seems bad. He's just really more of a burst champion rather than a sustained damage champion, and that's just not really where you want to be as most AD carries right now. So, anyways, that's going to be it. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll keep this to about an hour. Hope this gives you some insights into what's going on in the new meta. Like I said, I would definitely keep an eye on Kai'Sa, Lucian, Xayah. I think those will probably be 3 of the strongest ones here. And then some of the sleepers, might be Quinn. You might see Varus sneaking up or Sivir sneaking up a little bit more. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. All right, have a good day, and I'll see you next time.